What I'm going to start out with is talking a little bit about drug courts, because veteran treatment courts were developed out of the drug court model. And drug courts are coming upon almost 30 years where they've been in inception. And so they were first started out of Dade County, Miami. And there was a judge there that kept having cases coming across his bench that were drug and alcohol related. And one of his thoughts was, why are we incarcerating people in the prison system that have addictions? And it's just not making sense. You know, as far as cost-wise to the taxpayer, we're incarcerating people at approximately $22,000 a year, when we can spend between, for a drug court program, $5,000 to $7,000 to have them in the court program. So it really, it made sense to start these programs. This also offered, too, for judges a sentencing alternative. Rather than, of course, sentencing them to 3 to 5 years for possession of a controlled substance, they can put them into one of these sentencing alternative programs, which was started with drug court. Now there's over 2,500 drug court programs in the United States. We have drug court, mental health, DUI court, domestic violence, child protection drug courts, veteran treatment court, which is the newest court program. What they don't allow in the model with drug courts are people that come in with sex offenses or a history of sex offenses. They found that it just doesn't work with that population coming into the programs, and so they leave them then to either being incarcerated or serving their time through probation. With our veteran treatment court, we are a 5-county program, so we serve offenders in all 5 of our counties, whereas, like, for instance, in Latah County, you have a drug court and a mental health court specific to cases that are here in this county. So veteran treatment court would be district-wide. What happens is when somebody comes into a program, any one of these types of programs, is that their plea is taken, so they have to actually plead guilty. It's a post-plea, pre-sentence program for the most part. So they come in the program, they plea, and then they have a disposition agreement. And that agreement is going to either be a dismissal or a reduction, or if they come in with a probation violation, then they don't go to prison or go on what we call a rider, which is kind of like a boot camp, a pre-prison type program. So they sign this contract, and then they are accepted in the program. There's screenings that are done upon getting the referrals. Our referrals mostly come through the prosecutor's office. We do get some of our referrals through judges, public defenders, but the prosecutors are gatekeepers, so they have to agree to the case, and so we have to get their blessing. With all of these court programs, we have what's called an interdisciplinary team. And these teams consist of the judge being the leader. We've got the coordinator, prosecutor, defense attorney, treatment provider, probation, and we take, in our veteran treatment court, both misdemeanor and felony cases. We have law enforcement on the team, a mental health professional, and then we have what's called a veteran justice outreach coordinator. And this is a person that would be like our liaison from the VA. So when it comes to these veteran treatment court programs, it's, we have a partnership with the VA, so that's something that's kind of new to drug courts, because we've never had to partner with the VA, of course, because it's specific to veterans. But we have had to partner, like, for instance, with Department of Health and Welfare when it comes to mental health court programs, the counties, those types of partners. All of these drug court programs utilize what we call a 10-key component. It would be kind of like the rules of the program, best practice of the programs, and we also have what we call state and national standards and guidelines. And we've got those set up for just about every program. The DUI court in our state does not have a standard and guideline, but we do for veteran treatment court. And actually, our state is the first in the United States to develop those standards and guidelines. Idaho is really progressive when it comes to, these are called problem-solving courts as a general term. We have like a training site in Idaho Falls for mental health court programs, so we've got court teams that come in and are trained there. It's one of 4 training sites in the United States. So our legislature has been very much on board providing funding for our court programs. There was a grant that we had, a 3-year grant, and it was one that was started in 2005 and completed in 2008. And the research that came out of that is that we found that amongst the 3 drug courts that we have in our district, so that would be in Clearwater, Latah, and Nez Perce County, that the recidivism rate was only 22%, which is excellent.
Say again?
22% was the recidivism rate. So that would be committing new crimes. That's what we were measuring, is what crimes. It's really difficult to measure new use with drugs and alcohol, but as far as the criminal component of it, they were able to measure that. We don't have any research yet on veteran treatment courts. That will be, because they're fairly new. We started our veteran treatment court August of 2013. And then the first veteran treatment court was started in 2008 in Buffalo, New York. I would say probably too, the effectiveness of these court programs really is based off of the team concept, because when we staff on each of these cases, and in our veteran treatment court, we meet twice a month. So we staff on every case, and then after our staffing, then our veterans come into the courtroom and they meet with the judge. He goes through and reviews how they're, they've been doing since the previous court session. We have incentives, we have sometimes sanctioning if they're not following the court program. All these court programs are pretty, there's a lot of accountability and a number of rules that they have to follow. We're trying to change behaviors, and so then they can integrate back into the community. So kind of getting a little bit more specific now to veteran treatment courts. We see a lot of veterans that come in with DUIs. That's probably the most prevalent. And we see quite a few felony DUIs. So in our state, 3 felonies within the past 10 years, 3 DUIs in the past 10 years would be then a felony. They'd be facing a felony DUI. Our capacity for our Veterans Treatment Court is 15. We currently have 7. We just had a number of veterans graduate here in the past, probably about the past 4 or 5 months. We've got new referrals that are coming in, so I kind of anticipate that those numbers are going to start flowing back up again. I anticipate that we'll probably take maybe 4 new people, veterans this week.
Is that District 2 or Latah County?
That's District 2. We've had veterans out of Grangeville, Elk City, Moscow. I don't think we've had anybody out of like Piedmont, Lewis County area yet. But we have, and then Orofino, we've had a couple of veterans out of Orofino. We are seeing probably 80% of our veterans are combat veterans. We're seeing a number of Vietnam vets. And what I think is really interesting in some of the education that we've received is that kind of the reason we're seeing these Vietnam vets who are now facing some of their post-traumatic stress disorder is that they've been working for years and now they're retiring, and some of this stuff is kind of surfacing now. And so whether they've been like a functioning alcoholic and now they've got this time, they're just kind of facing some of the demons that they've really kind of pushed back and haven't addressed. So we are seeing number 2, Desert Storm veterans. We see quite a few of those. We don't see as many of the younger veterans from Afghanistan. A few Iraqi veterans. I anticipate, I think, too, that if we start to see more troops going in the Middle East, we're going to start seeing, of course, more veterans coming back. And that, that's just something that we're going to have to just deal with and help them integrate back into the community. Our Veteran Treatment Court meets twice a month. We meet on the 1st and 3rd Thursday. Average time that veterans are in our program is between 18 and 24 months. So the way it's set up in our program is they go through phases. They have 4 phases of our program, and they're generally about 3 to 4 months for each phase, with the last phase being like an integration back into the community. They've received all their treatment. We've got them doing a community project so that they're giving back to the community, and they're demonstrating too that they can stay clean and sober. The types of treatment that they're receiving are PTSD treatment, both one-on-ones and groups, substance abuse treatment. We actually use a community treatment provider rather than the VA. And the reason that we do that is that the VA is not able to provide the amount of treatment and the frequency of treatment that we need. And so that's why we've had to turn to them. We use what's called a community-based outpatient clinic that's in Lewiston. So veterans will go there for a lot of their needs. But when it comes to substance abuse, it's just, they're not able to. There's a support group there, but it doesn't address the treatment kinds of issues that they need in order to work through, like an intensive outpatient treatment, which would be probably on about 6 months worth of 6 to 7 hours a week. That's an intensive outpatient type of treatment to kind of give you an idea where they're going to groups and some one-on-ones. We do also have the residential treatment program that's in Walla Walla for our veterans. So if they are assessed and identified that they really need that more intensive on-site treatment, they can go to the 28-day residential treatment. They also receive psychiatric appointments, oftentimes through telehealth, because there is not a psychiatrist on site in Lewiston at what we call the CBOC, Community-Based Outpatient Clinic. They have strict probation supervision, felonies more strict than misdemeanor because of the degree of the crime. Both types of probation do home visits, and that's unannounced. We have drug and alcohol testing. They test about 10 to 12 times a month. That's why I say it's very intense. They go to early, when they go and give a sample for drug testing, they go early in the morning, between 6:30 and 8 o'clock. And we found that to be the best time. It kind of gets it out of the way as far as their day, they can get to work. So that's worked out really well. Some of the incentives that we provide for them in court when they're doing well would be like gift cards, certificates for clean and sober time, for advancing to the next phase, an attaboy, attagirl, those kinds of things. And then as far as sanctioning would be, what would constitute a sanction would be if they, for instance, if they miss court. That's huge. If you miss court and we don't know where you're at, we're putting out a bench warrant, so a warrant for their arrest. If they miss a drug and alcohol test, for us, we don't know if they have used or not. We assume that they've used if they've missed a test. Because there's only a short window of time that you can test and be able to pick up on certain drugs. So if they were to, if we found out like a day later, that's probably not gonna do us any good. If they've used methamphetamine, it might be out of their system by then, and opiates would be out of their system. So we would start out maybe with having them write a paper on, for instance, why they've maybe missed an appointment, missed one of their group times. We would start out on a low level sanctioning, and it might escalate then if they have multiple types of sanctions to community service and then possibly some jail time, just depending on what the infraction is. A uniqueness that we have in the Veteran Treatment Court Program is our mentor group, and as Bill said, he's a mentor, and then Barry Johnson, I'll point him out in the back, he too is a mentor of our court program. And the way this was developed is that what they found when they were working with these veteran treatment court programs is we all know veterans have this camaraderie. And they found that if they had somebody who was a mentor, that had served in the military, this would be somebody kind of like a war buddy or somebody that they could talk with. We don't ask our mentors to divulge any information that they've talked about. We want that to be confidential. We want that to be a relationship that they can share, unless there's any, if they are wanting to take their life, or if they're gonna harm somebody else with something like that, they need to notify one of the court team members. But other than that, we wanna keep that relationship so that it's something between the two of them. They also communicate frequently with their mentors. There is a requirement that they have to communicate twice a month. That can be either by phone, it can be sitting down for coffee, it can also be by a text message. We see that more in our younger veterans, where they will want to do more texting than they will, meeting face to face. And we have in our mentor group probably approximately 10, 11 mentors. And if you know of anybody, this is kind of the time to be able to advertise here, that we would love to have additional mentors in our program. Time commitment's really not a lot, it's more attending court twice a month, which is really nice, we can attend in court with your mentee, and then some communication with them during the week. The other thing that we have that's unique to the Veteran Treatment Courts is a forum. On our third Thursday of the month, which will be our second court session, we have a forum. And what we do with this is we provide an education piece or a speaker at the forum. We might have somebody come in and talk about maybe suicide prevention, financial planning, how to volunteer in the community, different resources for volunteering. We also have a meal that we provide in like a community organization, or maybe just somebody in the community that wants to provide a meal. And so we serve that, have that then there for the veterans so that they can have a chance to be able to talk with one another, visit, make it informal, and then have the speaker. And then also too at those forums, we have community resources too. So if there's anything that is new happening in the community, specific to veterans, we try and get that information out to them. So as far as veteran treatment courts, I think that from what we've seen so far, I think they're gonna be probably one of the most successful court programs that we've seen. Mental health courts are fairly successful, probably a little bit lower, or higher, lower in the recidivism rate. Not as good as probably that drug court figure that I gave you. But we're kind of learning more and more too with mental illnesses, on how to work with people that are mentally ill and get them engaged at the level that they're at, independent too, of course, on their mental illness. DUI courts are very, I'd say those are actually pretty successful. It's, the goal being we're getting people who are intoxicated off the road. And we have to keep that in mind. Sometimes it's hard for the team members because they want to see people be abstinent. It's really hard to have people be abstinent. But when we get them off the road, that's what's important. Do you have any questions for me?